In today's episode of the Pathmark Presents podcast, I have an interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Ben McGill, and he's hailing over from the team at Turtl. And Turtl is a very interesting tool. It's a content automation solution that helps basically to share content, very strategically in a personalized manner. And today we want to really deep dive what that all really means, who's actually using a Turtl. But on the flip side, also learn a little bit how Turtl use their own technology to grow the company. I'm very curious to deep dive with all of this with Ben today. So welcome to the show.
Great, Lucas. Thanks for having us. Great to be here.
Of course. Yeah. So before we really deep dive into things today, maybe tell us just in general a little bit about Turtl. Like, what is it all about?
Yeah, great. So, I mean, in simple terms, Turtl is a SaaS content platform, and really what we're solving is the problem of attention. And I guess you guys will know this, but not everyone does. But as people, we typically see or receive over 5,000 marketing messages a day. And for the most part, we're frustrated and annoyed by the comms we receive from businesses. And so it's getting really, really difficult for businesses to get the attention of the audiences they seek, particularly across marketing and sales. And we call this the war of attention at Turtl. And our platform provides a scientifically proven way to win up to 10 times the attention from your content, and use this then to achieve some of your key business goals, such as driving greater engagement, more pipeline, and foster growth. So that's kind of the principle of the platform. It's best often described, if we think about that in the context of like the real value framework, as businesses would assess a technology like us, we kind of solve or cover three core areas. One is production, where we are saving businesses time and money on the production of their content services. And speed and cost are two things that are highly prevalent in the current economic climate. The second aspect is attention, and we help businesses to win deeper and longer attention from their audiences. And whenever I talk to marketers, the principal focus of what they're trying to achieve is to get the attention of key people and nurture them through the buyer journey. So that attention aspect is critical. And then the final component of that value framework is that of outcomes. And really what we're saying there is that we help businesses to better understand exactly how their content is performing, so that they can focus their energy on the right opportunities, and they can start to move towards their objectives in a more confident manner, because without data, it's very difficult to do that. So that's broadly the product. And I guess a bit of uniqueness about our history, which you might find useful, is certainly for the listeners, is actually the roots of our business lie deep within psychology and science. So Nick, our founder, was actually, when he came up with the idea of the business, was actually working with some really interesting people within the medical sciences division at Oxford. And they were looking at how humans read and how we store and retain information. Mm-hmm. And at the time, his friends in marketing were telling him about all the great things that were happening in digital marketing. And he was applying the findings from the science and the research against what people were doing. And he was saying that, if you really knew how the brain worked, you wouldn't do anything in the way in which you're doing. So he quickly started building some interesting prototypes. And principally, our brains operate most efficiently in an explorative format. And when you look at the principal structure of scrolling pages and PDF documents and those types of forms, which drive a lot of communication on the internet, most of those formats are not conducive for us to retain and remember information. So back to my earlier point around focusing on attention, if you really want to get people's attention, the role that the vehicle that you communicate on is vitally important. And so, through the back of that, the idea of Turtl was born. And so we are working with businesses that are focused on addressing attention, but as we understand it, the only platform in the market to be leveraging psychology principles to do so.
Super interesting. And when you say content, just to clarify that for the readers, are we referring to sort of slide decks and PDFs that are being shared, or maybe give us a couple of examples where Turtl sort of is abused?
Absolutely. So the use cases, Lucas, are incredibly broad. So, as a basic platform, really popular replacement for the PDF, as well as PowerPoint, many microsites, which are expensive and difficult to maintain. Turtl's a good replacement. And where there's instances of longer scrolling pages, Turtl's often a great alternative to that. In terms of use cases, very broad. So, top of funnel, thought leadership, white papers, product brochures, all the way through the buyer journey to brochureware for sales, sales enablement kits, toolkits for salespeople, proposal documents, and then obviously off the back end, customer success teams use it for QBRs, talent acquisition teams use it for talent processes, learning. So very, very broad.
Before we progress in deeper into the interview, you mentioned those psychology-based principles. If a listener now is super interesting, wants to deep dive, because I'm sure we're probably not going to capture all of it in the interview today, where can they go? Where can they find more resources on, I'm sure you guys are educating somewhere on those principles.
Yeah, we do. We talk about it a lot. I mean, we've recently launched Turtl Labs, which you can access from our site and our social channel. And we're going to be talking a lot more about how through 8 billion points of data that we've researched and analyzed on our platform, we can guide people through improving the performance of content. We have a host of material on our site that is from a variety of third parties, all in and around the subject of psychology and how through layout and structure you can affect the performance of material when you present it. So thoroughly interesting subject, and one that Nick, our founder, talks a lot on. So if you're interested in that particular subject, I'd highly recommend people to follow him on LinkedIn.
Very cool. Now, what types of companies benefit the most? Like, what's the typical, is there an industry? Is there a certain size? Is there a vertical? Is there certain team sizes that you need to have in order to really benefit from Turtl the most?
Yeah, so from a business standpoint, we support a variety of sectors, Lucas. In all honesty, what we tend to find is that the businesses that have the greatest value, and this is across sectors like technology, which is a hot area for us, financial services. We do a lot in the consulting space. What we tend to find is that businesses that inherently have slightly longer cycles, sales cycles, that is, they have to take audiences or a complicated array of audiences with multiple personas through fairly long buyer journey. Those tend to be a really good place for us because they're expensive sales cycles, and measuring and delivering the right content to the right person at the right time is integral to a successful sales cycle. So those are very much the areas we focus on.
Very cool. You mentioned the keyword buyer journey a couple of times, which is obviously very close to the heart of the podcast and what people are talking about here. Now, I'm curious, how does the journey look like for somebody getting to know Turtl? Like, what's the typical journey of people getting to know about you guys? Or in other words, what are the client acquisition channels that you guys leverage, and how you guys find new clients usually?
Yeah, so we've taken, I guess, the stereotypical journey that many bootstrap businesses go on, where it's been predominantly sales led in the early stages, with modest levels of capital from a marketing standpoint, and we used to do a lot of events, and we used to rely on social to some extent, and then fortuitously or well planned, depending on which way you look at it, we set up an outbound SDR function about 4 months prior to the pandemic arriving. And that's been an incredibly powerful source of business for us, because what we're able to do is, obviously through that team and the use of our own technology, we can carefully target the audiences and the personas that we want to go after with hyper-personalized content. So that allows us to reach key audiences at scale. More recently, as our business has developed, we've seen a hugely successful percentage of our inbound actually coming from previous customers. So as our base of users has grown, and obviously people leave companies, we see an incredibly high percentage of those people that they arrive in a new company, and one of the first things they do in the first 90 days is is advise people that they'd like to continue using this tool that they used to use in their previous business. So that forms a large percentage of inbound, which is hugely exciting for us, and obviously for SaaS businesses where your net dollar retention is your livelihood. that's encouraging for us because it drives stickiness across clients.
You mentioned the usage of your own technology there. That is super interesting. Can you walk us through, how would this how would that work? Like what do people send? What do they experience the receiver? Maybe walk us through that journey a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So typically Turtl is HTML5 technology, but what we do is, you can distribute Turtl through 3 key channels on websites, social, and via email. And so rather than sending your outbound email with just a whole lot of text or a hyperlink to something, we send a really nice animated GIF that's highly visual, and there's elements of the visual that are personalized. And what we see is that you can fundamentally improve the performance of your content by in excess of 1,000% if you make the content relevant, and equally if you personalize the content. So if we know the person we're going out to, which we will do if we're emailing them, then we can place their company logo, their name. We can make it relevant to their persona depending on where they sit within the business. So we tend to find that it has a hugely influential impact on click-throughs. And then obviously once they're consuming the content, because it's relevant and it's personalized for them, we find that engagement tends to be particularly high, and that drives, as I say, a large percentage of our sales qualified opportunities into the business.
Super cool. If people are interested in trying that out, what should they do? If somebody's listening in and says, you know what, I would love to run like an outbound campaign and have a personalized GIF in there, for example, or image, as you were saying, what should they do?
Yeah, so I mean, we do these all the time, right? We run proof of value concepts for a lot of clients, and what we tend to find is that if you come to us and your objective is to improve performance, then we're excited to have those conversations, because that's really what we're about, right? We're less about people that arrive and say, hey, I've got this document and I want it to look nice. Obviously, Turtl can do that, and aesthetically it's beautiful, but we're in the business of driving the right outcomes at a strategic level. So if you are doing outbound and you're running campaigns today and you're not happy with your metrics, then what we tend to find is those programs, we can hugely influence the performance of those programs. And we'll ask those people to come in, take us through the metrics today and take us through the journey that their readers are going through. And then we'll look for ways in which we can influence that through relevancy, through personalized scaled outbound. And then we'll run a test and we'll show them that actually, the psychology does work, and we'll drive improvements on the campaign.
Awesome. Very cool. Now speaking about the future, what businesses like yours and the listeners, what do they have to do to bring the customer's journey to the next level? I think we touched on it a little bit already. Personalization at scale is one theme that you guys are standing for. What do you see moving forward when it comes to bringing that journey to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just a real balance of technology and process. I think people need to better understand their audiences. That's fundamental, and that comes through the right levels of measurement. And then I think it's optimizing, right? We need humans involved to some degree, but then we need to automate and scale. So it's those businesses that can find a balance of technology and insight to drive that. And I think, we're working on those programs at the moment, right? So we're moving from a business that's been historically sales-led, and we're moving towards a business now that's product-led. And in order to do that effectively, one has to really understand the journey and the stages that all the users are going on, and the only way you can do that is by measuring effectively. So we've got a really great blend of technologies that are driving insight, which allows us to serve those users and future users in the most efficient way possible.
Very cool. Now we learned a lot about Turtl. We learned about how you're applying your own technology in your outbound efforts, and we also discussed where people can search more if they're interested specifically in how to, because I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that want to actually maybe look at the content a second time now, having that all in mind, actually including the team at Pathmonk. Now one thing we have at the end is some rapid fire questions just to get to know you a little bit better. They're a little bit of surprise for the guests, but they're harmless, just to get to know you and your journey a little bit better. Are you ready for those?
Yeah, let's do it.
Very good. What is the last book you read or the last podcast you listened to?
So Scaling the Revenue Engine by Tom Moore. It's the book that is in progress.
Very good. What's the one single thing your company is focused on the most at the moment?
I would say right now, a consistent message into the market. That's what we're focusing on now. We've recognized that our tool has a huge amount of value, but the perception can sometimes be Turtl is made up of lots of things. So we're driving a lot of consistency in our message into the market.
If there would be no boundaries in tech, what's the one thing you would fix for your role today?
If there were no boundaries with tech, I would have all of the details for my ICP accessible with a click of a finger. Phone numbers, emails, LinkedIn pages.
Very cool. And for the very last question, right? If we do a little bit of time travel, right? We go back to the day when you joined Turtl. What's the one advice you would give yourself for your journey when you restart in the position?
So I think for us would be to, before you scale anything, make sure your process is working. Yeah, we've always taken a very considered approach to how we grow our business, and it's growth comes in stages, and when you bootstrapped in the early stages, you can only go as far as your capital takes you. But the thing that I've learned from a few of the businesses I've been in, as well as Turtl, is that money is only useful if you know what you're going to spend it on, and to be crystal clear on what the problem is that you're solving for before you start to spend any money, whether it's a small amount or a larger amount.
Makes a whole lot of sense. Ben, I really appreciate you took the time with us today. I want to give you the very last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about Turtl today, what's the one thing that they should remember? I
think for us, Turtl is the scientifically better way to do content. And so, if you truly focus on performance and output and moving the needle, then we'd be delighted to talk to you.
Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathmark Presents.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.